Eliza heard the voice on the 8th night. You took his place. And worse, she recognized it. It was her own voice. The storm had passed, but the tower still dripped with seawater. Her breath curled in the cold air, thin and white. The mirror across the lantern room had fogged again, on the inside. In its blurred reflection, something moved. Not her reflection. Not anymore. 3 weeks earlier, Eliza Caro stepped off the ferry with a single suitcase and a folder stamped Coastal Service, Temporary Appointment. She wore her grief like a veil and silence as a shield. The ferry rocked behind her, already drifting back into the fog. No one had come to meet her. Only the sea greeted her with its endless wheezing breath. She hadn't told anyone where she was going. That was the point. Her husband had died 3 months prior, lost to a wreck off the Faroe coast. Since then, she'd existed in a hush of mourning. Her friends had stopped calling. The rooms of her home had grown too large. Then the letter came. A lighthouse keeper was needed for a remote outpost, temporary, unwanted, forgotten. She volunteered. The walk inland took nearly an hour through fog too thick to be natural. Trees thinned, birds fell silent. At one point, she could swear the wind carried voices, fragmented syllables stitched from breath and mist. When the lighthouse finally emerged from the cliffs, it looked less like a building and more like a monument, a grave marker for something ancient. The door, an iron slab half swallowed by stone, opened without protest. The cliffs at Black Ridge were cruel in winter. Wind-carved canyons in the heather. Sea spray froze mid-air, drifting like ghost breath across the moors. And rising above it all stood the lighthouse. It had stood unblinking for nearly 2 centuries, outlasting wars, storms, and its own builders. It had outlived its keepers, too. Locals said the lighthouse had a soul, fed by the loneliness of those who tended it. Some said it blinked in dreams. Others claimed it never blinked at all. Inside, the air smelled of brine, candle wax, and something older. Pages, perhaps. Forgotten paper. Forgotten people. The tower coiled upward through dim rooms and weathered furniture. Brass instruments lined the walls. Dust drifted in the beams of light like ash. A kettle rested on the stove, warm. The bed was made with surprising neatness. A single framed photograph stood on the mantel, a man in uniform beside a woman in a lace collar. No date, no names. Their eyes followed her. Her official duties were outlined in a leather-bound logbook. Check lamp mechanism. Record weather. Mind the tides. Stay within lighthouse grounds. Do not allow the light to go out. Simple enough. But the unofficial duties emerged more slowly. On her 3rd evening, while sorting through the dusty shelves in the study, Eliza discovered a bundle of old letters bound with twine. They had been hidden in a false compartment behind a row of damp books, 50, perhaps more. Each one was addressed to My Dearest Margaret. The first, dated 1886. The sea is cruel tonight. I saw her again. Margaret, your eyes are everywhere. The lamp still burns, but I wonder if it keeps her away, or calls her home. Forgive me. Thomas, she read until her hands trembled. The writing deteriorated over time. Later letters described salt-drenched dreams, bones shifting in the walls, and a face at the glass. Her face, but wrong. She found a broken music box beneath the bed. It played only one note. She dropped it. It didn't break. Nothing ever broke in the lighthouse, but things disappeared. Keys, gloves, names. By the 10th letter, Thomas's tone was no longer mournful. It was terrified. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. The wind scratched at the windows like claws. The foghorn moaned like a dying thing. At midnight, the phonograph in the parlor clicked on by itself, playing a warped melody, a lullaby almost, and in the mirror, just for a moment, she saw someone standing behind her. Pale, wet, smiling. She stayed awake until dawn. The mirror fogged on the inside. Her breath turned to frost. She went into town for answers. Blackridge was a place that had forgotten how to laugh. Stone cottages crouched beneath centuries of damp and wind. Every shopkeeper watched her with something between pity and dread. A child pointed and whispered, "Another one." At the butcher's shop, a man sharpening his cleaver said, "The lighthouse should have torn it down after Margaret vanished." At the post office, an old woman with cataract eyes leaned forward and whispered, "She still walks." My grandmother saw her on the cliffs, black dress, water dripping from her hem, singing to herself. "Who?" Eliza asked. The woman only crossed herself and shut the window. In the churchyard, Eliza found a worn stone half sunk into the moss. Margaret Albrecht, 1854. The sea takes what it loves. The wind shifted, colder. She returned to the lighthouse before dusk. Her lantern flickered with each gust. On her pillow, though the windows had remained locked, rested a letter. Not yellowed, not aged, and not signed by Thomas. "To the new keeper you turn the light for others, not for me. You will see her face soon. You will feel the pull. The tide takes everything in time. Don't let her in. Don't answer when she sings." Eliza burned the letter, buried the ashes beneath the floorboards. At midnight, just after the phonograph stopped its warped lullaby, the air thickened. Then she heard it again. "You took his place." Her spine locked. That voice wasn't an echo in her head. It had come from the stairwell, and it was hers, speaking back to her. On the 9th day, a storm lashed the coast like punishment. Rain struck sideways. Waves hammered the rocks below. At twilight, the beacon lens cracked. The light sputtered and died. Eliza climbed the spiral stairs 2 at a time, soaked and breathless, trying to relight it by hand. But when she reached the lantern room, the storm was gone. No thunder, no wind, no sea, only silence. Then, a knock. Once, twice, a third time. Soft, deliberate. She froze. Every instinct screamed, "Do not open it. Do not speak." Through the keyhole, a voice. "Thomas, it's me." "Let me in. I've come back." Eliza's throat closed. "I'm not Thomas," she managed. The voice replied gently, like surf brushing a drowned grave. "You are now." She stepped away. The door stayed closed, but the next morning she found it unlatched. The air colder, the candles wet with seawater, the mirror fogged with brine, and the photograph on the mantel had changed. The man was gone. Only the woman remained, her smile wider. That night, Eliza didn't sleep. She watched from the tower window instead. Fog drifted low across the cliffs. And then, movement, a shape, a woman in black. She walked with halting grace, her limbs bending at strange angles, her neck too long. She turned slowly, looked up at the tower, and smiled. Eliza wept without knowing why. She found the final journal entry tucked beneath a rusted lantern in the drawer of the keeper's desk. It wasn't dated. The ink looked fresh. The sea is not empty. It listens. It waits. She was never Margaret, not entirely. She wore her grief like skin, and now she wears other faces. Mine, yours. She wants to be remembered. She wants to be kept. The light is her boundary. If it fails, she walks. The words etch themselves into her thoughts like acid. She tried to leave. She packed her suitcase, waited at the dock for the next ferry. But the boat never came. Fog devoured the water. The path vanished beneath her feet. She was alone, the sea breathing steadily below, and the tide was rising. Each night she climbed the tower, lit the lamp, wrote in the log. Each night the winds grew louder, the lighthouse colder. She woke once with sand in her mouth. another time with seaweed wrapped around her wrists. Sometimes she heard weeping on the stairs, sometimes it was her own. She stopped using mirrors. She woke on the final day, not in her bed, but in the lantern room. The light was burning, bright, unblinking. The iron door bolted shut. The mirror across the room was cracked. She stood slowly. Her limbs ached. Her clothes smelled of salt. And in the fractured glass, not her reflection, Margaret's, or something wearing Margaret's face, pale, translucent, lips purple with cold, eyes milky with centuries of salt, smiling like she'd won. And Eliza understood. She had not come to replace Thomas. She had come to replace Margaret. "You do not escape grief by running into the sea," the mirror whispered. "You only teach it how to swim." And so she remained, in the tower, a new widow, a new watcher. The sea always takes what it loves, and it never lets go.